Yeah. Wait, should we record this? Because I saw this on my feed and I was going to leave a comment and I saw your comment on it. And then I
Yeah.
didn't even end up leaving my comment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay.
Okay. When you start your business, no one ever prepares you for what's in store. So finding someone else who just gets it is sometimes the thing that can keep you pushing towards those big vision board business goals.
We're turning our Zoom coffee chats into a weekly, unfiltered podcast for online business owners. There were so many good ones, we always wanted to record them and repurpose them for content anyways. And that's on being a social media manager.
I'm Jessica Sheehy.
And I'm Madeline Daigan. And this is
hashtag
managed. I think it's perfect.
I like it. I like it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Hashtag Managed. Maddie and I are really excited to introduce you guys to our guest this week. This week, we have Heather Kerrison on the podcast. Heather helps businesses and brands achieve the social media presence and engagement they've only dreamed of. Over 8 years ago, she started an Instagram page for her sister's corgi, Hudson. His content has since reached millions of people worldwide. She also holds a Master's of Environmental Studies, through which she focused on using storytelling and social media to create impact and alter behavior. As a lifelong lover of photography, creativity, and storytelling, she simply gets it. She did this on the side for years before turning this into her full-time gig. She's a seasoned adventurer and creator, traveler, rescue dog mom, and educator. Heather, welcome to the Hashtag Manage podcast.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And I know I personally have been following you for a few years now, but tell us a little bit more about you and Wild Media Co. for our audience.
Sure, yeah. So I started Wild Media Co. in the fall of 2021. It really came on the heels, I guess I'll just expose myself, of being let go from a communications job. There's this new book coming out actually called All Cool Girls Get Fired. So I'm lumping myself in with that. But it really, like, Wild Media had already been an idea in my mind at that point, and I just thought, oh, I need some more professional work experience. And that really became the catalyst to just say, let's do it now. And it really exploded in a way that I couldn't have anticipated pretty much out the gate. I had to hire on more people. And yeah, it's really just been a pleasure ever since, and kind of naturally evolved to being something where we focus on a lot of the Toronto arts and culture scene.
Awesome. Awesome. I have to say, Maddie and I talk about our stories of being fired, both from corporate roles and also from clients as well. Full transparency there, it happens. But I'm going to have to add that book to my cart immediately when it comes out.
Yeah, I think it's pre-order right now, but I definitely want to read it in full.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, I'm going to order that and then I will go ahead and I'm going to pop a link to that in our show notes as well if anyone else can relate in our audience, because I know so many of us, I think oftentimes that's how we kind of find ourselves in entrepreneurship. You know, I always like to say I was like pushed into entrepreneurship. I wanted to be a business owner for so long, but honestly, without a push, I don't think I would have done it. Like, it would have probably been years and years
Yeah.
before I actually had the courage to probably do it. Yeah. Well, Heather, you mentioned you had a team. I wanted to just add like a quick little question about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the team that you work with? Are they a team of contractors? Are you guys all remote? I just love hearing about like teams and structures since we have one as well. So I'd love to hear what that looks like for you guys, because that just sounds like amazing growth.
Yeah, so that's exactly, we function the same way. It's a team of contractors, all working remotely. Basically, when I was going to start the business, I did take a course. I feel like it feels taboo to even say that now because there's so much garbage in the course world. But I took a really helpful course that was essentially just about the actual business of things, like how to run things, systems, that sort of a thing. And it was from the perspective of using like a contracted, remote workforce, which just makes a lot of sense because there's a lot that I still have that I still do a lot in the business. I'm not really, at the top and just watching everything happen. I touch everything that's creative and everything goes through me at the end of the day. But the first things that you want to sort of get rid of off your plate are like lower level tasks. So I have a copywriter, I have a community manager, I outsource bookkeeping, all those kind of tasks that just, they don't need me in them specifically, and I can still
Mhm.
oversee them. But it's much better to have that off my plate and I get to focus on like strategy and creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay, I have another question. I feel like that's a good segue to what we really the meat of what today's episode is about, which is personal brand. And so you having a team, would you say you are the face of Wild Media Co?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, any business that we get is usually because of a connection to me specifically, and my name has become very personally associated with the company itself. So I think it really becomes one of those things where it's so interwoven. It's kind of like Wild Media Co doesn't necessarily precede me in the sense that most people that know one know the other.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think oftentimes from conversations that I have with different businesses, they're often really scared to lean into their personal brand when 9 times out of 10 their personal brand is already prevalent, whether they know it or not, whether they're like nurturing it or not. Like there's so many instances of the brand, especially if they're working with clientele one-on-one. Maybe they're, even if they're a brick and mortar and maybe there's many customers coming in and out of the door every day. If they're like that, like bright smiling face that people see as soon as they walk in, they're checking them out, they're having conversations, like they're really building their personal brand and it's really connected. Would you say that a personal brand is, really similar to crafting a company brand? Do you think one is more beneficial than the other? We'd love to hear your take on that, because obviously you have a really strong brand in Wild Media Co, but also, like you said, your name is really well attached as well.
Yeah, I think there can still be both. Like, for example, I think that I do try to let Wild Media Co have its own space. I'm obviously the face of it, but then I'm also a creator in my own regard. Like, have a personal account, post content that has nothing to do with work. It really is just from the perspective of being a creator. But I think that in a lot of senses, there are a lot of similarities. I think this kind of founder led marketing is a natural evolution of where we were already going. Already a good strategy for a business should basically have a personality, a tone. It should have a community in mind that it's trying to connect with. And the way that you connect with community is by establishing a common ground. What do the people have in common that you want to welcome into this community? And I think what's really kind of just like shifted a little is that people are more aware than ever that they're constantly being sold to, and there's more options than ever for products and services. And so people now are aware that the power is in kind of their dollar and where they want to put it. And yes, you can still create a strong brand without having, say, the founder be a part of it. But at the end of the day, there's still people that are necessary to represent the brand, whether that be ambassadors that you work with a lot, i.e., influencers that are representative of the brand, and you want to be careful how you choose those people. Or some brands have chosen to have like a social media personality be at the forefront that is very recognizable to people. But at the end of the day, you need to have someone that represents your brand, and people just really connect to this founder led marketing.
Hmm. Yeah, I really love that you brought up the connection piece to it, because I feel like in my experience, conversations that I have with founders is that they immediately think founder led content is influencer content, and I think it is. I think everyone who is creating content online is influencing in their own way. Even clients that we talk to on just client calls, like again, just on on Zoom or Google Meet, like they're influencing me in one way or another, because they're like, hey, I just met with so and so, or I just read this book, or they're like, I just listened to this keynote. And I'm like, okay, they listened to this keynote, I know what I'm going to listen to tonight. You know what I mean? Like you're always
Yeah.
constantly influenced by anyone that you come in contact with, whether it be personal life or business. And I think a lot of times founders are so I don't know if camera shy or scared or just not really sure where to start. I don't know. I would kind of maybe put them under all three buckets, but they really feel like they don't have anything to add. And I think, again, when you think about the community piece and connecting with your audience, like that is the number one thing that if we ask any business owner that we've ever met in our life, like they can tell us why they created their business and why they're super
Of course.
passionate about it. And from that, that's where I think their marketing can come from. But oftentimes they see it as, they have to get in front of the camera or they have to do this and film this, and they almost become a little bit like robotic. Like, hi, I'm Jessica, I'm the founder of Social Savvy and Hashtag Managed, and this is what I do. And then you're like 30 minutes in and or 30 seconds in and you're like, okay, Jessica, get to the point. Like, why are you
Right.
here on camera talking to me? But I think people are so, they often forget that connection piece with their
Yeah.
audience.
Yeah, and I think something that can't be looked past with the founder-led marketing is the allure to it, right? That's not something that has previously ever been accessible to us. We didn't really know the founders of companies. They were never really at the forefront unless it was like a small business that you're walking into and you're meeting them. But there's been this huge transition of all these online companies, say your e-commerce, where the founder has their own presence that feeds into the brand. So even like I'm saying, it doesn't necessarily have to be even on the business page. I think that's what people get worried about. Oh, we've created this certain aesthetic and this certain tone on the business page. We can't just turn it into the founder's diary. No, but it would be very helpful to even have a separate, the founder herself or himself, I'll say her, is attached to it in another way, that people are seeing it from both angles, right? And maybe they're providing insights to the business, and that level of transparency and authenticity that we've seen coming through. I've seen so many founders in the past year get on online and say, hey, like, to my following, we did have this problem with the last shipment, and I'm going to tell you what happened, and I'm so sorry, and this community means so much to me. I wanted to get on here and speak to you directly. And it's like, when have we lived in a world where that was happening or possible? That, the company that you ordered a sweater from and it came and it wasn't what you expected is actually going to just literally post a video of them giving a message directly to you and being like, hey, like, we're really sorry about this and we do want to make it right. And I'm a person and mistakes happen. It's a lot harder to be mad when it's a person rather than a nameless entity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because we work with a client, and when it comes to anything customer service related, and again, as marketers, we're always kind of, creeping over project scope here or there. But again, I think this was, to me, poor customer service really plays into, okay, community buzz and what they're posting about and negative reviews online and bad bad comments and different things like that. So I think it's so intertwined. And so we have a client who, anytime anything customer service related happens, they want it to come from the company support email, like immediately. Like they just want it to, they have, obviously they have they have operations people in place who send these templates out and talk about, like, apologizing for this. But who wants to read an apology from a support? Or, if you've ever received an email, you're on an email list for a company, and, for lack of a better example right now, but, oftentimes companies send out like a marketing email to a lot of people. And then you get a letter from the founder. Oh, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to send this to you. It doesn't really make sense. Sorry for spamming your email. But it's just so informal. But I love the idea of a founder having a presence on social media. Like you said, they can easily create their own. It doesn't have to be their personal Instagram. I don't really think it should be, because then that gets very messy and intertwined. But they can create their own founder or owner CEO account, and that's where they can share different things. Even better if they have a marketing team who can kind of guide that way for them to do it. But if things do happen, then they can add that personal touch, which, I mean, no one's really doing that. And I always like to tell clients and say that you just have to be 1% better than your competitor on social media. You don't have to
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do all these crazy things. Just be 1% better, and your clients or customers, they're going to notice that, and they're going to remember that next time they go to purchase.
For sure. And I have noticed it like sneaking into, say, email marketing, like you were mentioning. I got a couple around the holidays that the subject line, instead of being something generic, like, oh, new sweater line, or yeah, holiday wishes from our team or something, it would literally say something like, and not even just a note from the founder, it would say a note from Aaron or something. And then
Mm-hmm.
even it kind of, I could feel how psychologically different that felt to receive. Like you would see it, and for a second I'm like, because there's one company that, I mean, I buy tons of stuff from them, like an activewear company, Azure Fit, founded in Toronto. And so I know that the founder is this girl named Erin because she's very involved in the marketing. And then all of a sudden I just get this email and it's like a note from Erin, and I'm like, wait. And it was just an email that they sent out to their email list, but it was like a note that she wrote, how much she appreciates the community, blah, blah, blah. And then there was even like, kind of like a little signature at the bottom, which is like a nice little personal touch. But it's like, she has always been very involved in their marketing. I know who she is. And now this is like another step in terms of like a personal connection. It's a pseudo social relationship. And over any other brand, like more so than, say, Lululemon, I want to see her win. And that's where I buy my athletic wear
Mhm.
from.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah. Oh, I
that.
love great example.
I
Yeah.
I feel like that's becoming. I hope this becomes more like normalized because one of the boutiques I was working with, we would send a letter from the founder at the beginning of every month. And it was just, it's amazing to see how many opens that email got versus all of the other ones because to your point, like psychologically, like it was coming from her email where the boutique had multiple emails, but it just coming from like the hello at, and again where no, they associated it with her. That, yeah, I'm curious if you've ever worked with any founders who were hesitant to step into the spotlight and how you help them overcome that.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I definitely have. I would say that it's a pretty common plight these days to run into teams and founders of all sorts that are really not very comfortable being on video and then being told that they absolutely need to be. And of course, there's way around it. Like I'm saying, it doesn't. If it's a social media account, for example, of a business, sometimes having employee focused content or employees that pop up a lot is fine. And certain people might be able to avoid that if they're really that uncomfortable with it. I, first of all, always just try to bridge the gap where I'm just, say, I do interviews a lot for in like the art world. And a lot of people are, when you first sit down, hand them a mic, they're not comfortable. And I just try to say, we're just having a conversation. You can just act like you're talking to me. I'm going to prompt you very naturally, respond very naturally. I just try to really make it clear to people that it's not that serious. If anything, that's the whole point of it, is to not be so serious and not be so polished. So I think that helps a little bit. And then some people I've had to kind of just like coach them, like some that I work with on like strategy basis. It feels like I'm just their coach, where I'm coaching them along to kind of like try little things, right? Like if you're not comfortable on video at all, start with certain types of B-roll. Maybe there's certain sounds that you can use that are more just gesture based. You're not just talking to a camera, which is, I would say, like the top level of what people fear. But just incorporating yourself on video more and more. Like even if you were a founder that wanted to include yourself in the video content, try making a day in your life, but it's just a voiceover. You can just take the little clips and then include your voice. You have a lot more control over that. You don't have to talk directly to screen. There's a lot of like kind of little ways to push yourself in that direction. That also is kind of you testing content along the way. So it's like a win-win, getting more information of what your audience likes while sort of building yourself up to that bigger scene. And one of the client that I'm specifically thinking about is a founder of like a highly successful blog and uses her social media, or wanted to use her social media to feed into that. But honestly, it was almost a year probably of like working her up to actually speaking to camera. She started on stories first because they don't stick around. But now she's posting full videos of her talking and her account is exploding. So it's just really lovely to see that evolution. But yeah, I would say that it usually comes with some hefty hesitation at first.
Yeah, and I love that it's a progress, to get to that point versus no, you need to do this or you need to read this script or here's exactly how you should set up your camera or if you're a content creator for them, you're setting up the shot, you're sitting them down, lights are beating down on them, you're staring at them, the camera's staring at them and you're like, "Okay, go." Like, record what you want to. I think it is really helpful to kind of do that progression. And I think with anything marketing related, but especially content creation, just consistently doing it. Like you will get better at it. I
Yeah.
mean, even myself, like creating content, I can creative direct anyone like all day long, but when I'm sitting down and actually doing it myself, I would much rather like, and I do, I tell our team, like, tell me what to do, creative
Yeah.
direct me because I don't, I'm not physically sitting in that content creator role all day long like most content creators are. And so I'm the same way. I feel like I have the same perspective as any other founder that I I don't really do this that often. I talk about it, but I'm not physically in the act of doing it. So it doesn't feel like really comfortable for me. But I know, for example, there was a time where I filmed a ton of day in the lives and honestly they got easier and easier and I'm like, "Wait,
Yeah.
I want to add more of this or I want to do a little bit of like talking to screen and then voiceover and get a little creative with the editing." So it just takes like consistency, I think, to get to that point. So I'm glad that you brought that up as well because I think a lot of people are really hesitant on founder content. And I know a lot of our audience being marketers, they listen, they hear that from their clients and they're like, I can go create something else for you. But to your point, that client who's now doing these face screen videos, really religiously on their account, they're seeing amazing growth. And so it really correlates with that. I mean, you can create other content and us as marketers can create really great pieces of content, but you can't recreate that authenticity that a founder can bring.
No. And I think that really the barrier that people have to overcome is acting like when you pull up your phone to record, literally act like you're talking to a friend. That's how people want you to come across, and that's how it comes across the most casually. Like think of a platform like TikTok. Uh, Videos will go viral where people are literally just holding their phone as if, or even just like leaning on a couch. You see ones people just leaning on a couch cushion, and it literally feels like your friend is just sitting across from you talking to you. And they're like, "Hey, like I was just thinking about this," and it just feels like you're having a conversation. It's so casual. And I think there is definitely some age group differences in what feels okay. There used to be a lot more privacy in life, and kind of just letting the whole internet into your home when you're not maybe done up, and all this kind of stuff is really foreign to some people, and hard to get into. So I completely understand that, but it is kind of just a muscle that you have to flex until you get more and more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. Heather, do you think that founder led marketing is a long term trend or do you think it will shift as brands grow? What's your take on that?
I definitely think it's long term, especially in like the creator economy that we currently live in. So what we're seeing a lot of actually is kind of this pipeline or two-way direction between influencers and companies and therefore marketing. There's a lot of people who became influencers. Think of Emma Chamberlain, right? She built a massive brand around herself, and having coffee was like something that was associated with her. People in her community knew she liked that, etc. And now she's built this whole empire brand behind herself. And so you're seeing that a lot. And then you're also seeing kind of this evolution of, like I was saying before, these founders who are just have their own presence while their brand has its own presence, but they're just being a lot more transparent. And again, people are getting attached to them as a person. And so I think there'll always kind of be these conglomerates where, no one's drinking Coke because they think the founder is cool. Like there'll always be brands that are at a certain echelon that is there. They are an entity and they're just kind of above all of that. However, they're always going to have like ambassadors and such like that. If you think of big brands, they get celebrities to be ambassadors. That's still a face to associate with their brand. But I think in terms of these like more grassroots brands, they know how big it is. Like, I don't know if you guys know NYX, the brand NYX.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna NYX is still a huge part of the brand. And, she's not the only one that appears on their page, but everyone knows who she is. They play into her story. And, when they have a huge like anniversary, or maybe they want to talk about something, she pops in here and there. And again, it's just a further point of connection to the brand. I don't think that it's going anywhere, because we are kind of seeing this, it going both directions, like people building a very personal brand, i.e. like an influencer level brand, and then transitioning to that into, say, like a product-based brand. That I feel like that is just happening more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have, talking about NYX and Coca-Cola, who would you say some of your favorite brand founders are, or how do I want to say this? Like, just founder stories that you're enjoying watching on social right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, NYX is a huge one for me. I think that everything they do is so great. Like, they really have hit the nail on the head. They've defined a community and built their page around that. I believe even in their bio, it says something like join Club NYX. They've defined what it is to be part of their community, and they're literally inviting you into it, because it's not that sexy to be a brand that sells period underwear, but they've actually made it more into a movement, right? So it's all about women empowerment, and they work with really prominent influencers in like the body positivity space, like the Birds Papaya. So the Birds Papaya, Sarah, huge influencer in the body positivity space, and she is now on ads for NYX, appears on their socials. They work with a lot of other people too, but that's like a super prominent one. And then Joanna, again, we all love an underdog story. Her story was that she was told no so many times before NYX actually became a successful brand. And again, I think we all just love to see it, like love to see someone try and win. And that becomes almost part of the narrative of why people want to support it. You know what I mean? Like, someone else could make a period product, but it doesn't have this ethos that they've created around it, where Joanna plays into it. They have the established community, they have the other ambassadors that they've brought on board. Like, they've done it in a really smart way.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Don't worry, there's more to come on Thursday when we're picking back up the conversation with Heather, talking about the biggest marketing moment of 2024. And I bet you know exactly what it was. You definitely saw this on your TikTok, and you probably have this product at home or probably in your hand, to be honest. And we're also talking all things user-generated content for creators and brands. So tune in on Thursday when this next episode drops. Listen up, social media managers, freelancers, and online business bosses. If you're still out here trying to Google your way to success, it's time for an upgrade. The Hashtag Manage Collective is a free Facebook group where we ditch the fluff and get real about what actually works in social media management. Community, coaching, and resources. Because your ideal clients don't just magically find you. We're a group of 20,000 plus social media managers, and it's absolutely free to join us. So what are you waiting on? Join now at hashtagmanage.com/group. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you made it this far, I think we've officially become internet besties. You can always call into the hashtag hotline and say hello, leave a review, or ask your burning questions.
Make sure you follow, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening from. Subscribe to the Social Club newsletter for our weekly email, and shoot us a DM over at hashtag Manage on Instagram, letting us know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode.